Welcome. Scott here. Here is a quick boss guide for the upcoming event, Intersecting Wills Comfortably Uncompromising for Desch from Final Fantasy III. Other than Desch, the synergy unit for the event is Machina, Edgar, and Kam'lanaut. The featured units will be getting their force enhancement boards unlocked. Desch FR will be making her debut. Both he and Machina will be getting their reworks and C90 awakenings. We will be fighting two Medusa. They have 60 million HP each. The turn requirement is 75. The HP requirements is 15,000. Before I continue further, here is a small disclaimer clause for the video. The guide is written based on the time that the event was released for the Japanese version. Please do note that it is possible that the boss fight mechanics might differ when the actual event is released in global. As we are no longer have Lufania Plus fights, the boss guide will be focusing primarily on Shinryu fights. In Shinryu, you need to understand the effects gained by the boss as the force gauge build up, its force ability and its force time effect. As your party has low force levels at the start of the era, it is highly certain that the boss force gauge will build up faster than yours. To have a better understanding on the basics of the force gauge mechanics and Shinryu fights, I have done a video explaining the mechanics. I have included the link to the video under the comments and video description for your quick reference. For this fight, the boss force gauge is broken into 5 thresholds. When the boss gauge is more or equal to 40%, the boss inflicts an initial brave down aura of 200% on all enemies. When the boss gauge is more or equal to 60%, the boss inflicts an initial brave down aura of 200% on all enemies along with party speed up aura of 30%. When the boss gauge is more or equal to 80%, in additional of the auras gained mentioned previously, the boss will gain additional 50% boost to its party brave damage. The boss force gauge will build up faster as its HP is lowered. You can refer to the table on the screen for the percentages. At the first glance, initial brave down aura doesn't seem dangerous. But the auras can cause a lot of things. It will weaken any abilities that is driven by initial brave, for example Warrior of Light Shields, and lower your party's brave regen. In the fight, if the Medusa deals 7,000 brave damage for any ability that it uses, it will trigger a Petrify aura effect. This Petrify aura cannot be evaded with debuff evasion or cleansed. The effect will remain until the affected unit takes a turn or got KO in the battle. At the 100% threshold, the boss will use its force ability, Gaze, and activates its force time for 4 turns. The boss force ability, Gaze, is a guaranteed hit, reset break status, AoE brave plus HP attack. It will ignore effects that reduce or nullify HP damage. Like its other abilities, it will trigger Petrify if the one of its brave hits is equal and above 7,000. Upon using the force ability, the boss will enter into its force time where the gauge will start to emit a red hue with counter of 4 on its gauge. When the force time is activated, the boss will gain an additional brave damage boost of 30% along with its brave hit being doubled. The effect is the same as Priush BT aura effect. To freeze the enemy's force time, you need to use a Thunder Elemental melee force ability, which is Desch's FR ability at the moment. To make your fight easier, it is highly recommended to bring Desch, as his anti-physical or anti-magic will reduce incoming brave by 99%. If you don't plan to bring Desch, you can bring a tank, as most tanks have brave damage reduction utility. The other alternate is nuke the bosses to death by abusing the powerful Kam'lanaut force time. Now let's proceed with some party setup recommendations. Recommended calls abilities. To ensure that you are able to constantly break them, it is important to inflict defense down debuffs. Example of calls abilities that inflict defense down calls are Ferris, Titus, Jack, and Vanille. To speed up the fight, using HP damage up debuff calls like Karasame, Seymour, Fran, Ignis, Lily-Set, Maria, and Dark Knight Cecil are useful. Although a bit trickier to use, aura type HP damage up calls like Kamari, Alisai, Priush, Leo and Locke are also viable. Most recently C90 units have aura type HP damage up bonuses. You can use Dissidia DB call finder to find out more. The fight features a lot of HP attacks. Damage mitigation calls like Warrior of Light, Raijin, Redia, and Reno are useful here. Next, I will be covering units that will be useful to handle the fight mechanics. For any endgame fights like Lufania and Shinryu, it is always recommended to bring supports for their aura and buffs. You can consider bringing Selphie, Lena, Ishtala, Yuna, Garnet, Purim, Rem, and Ramza. Selphie can make your party hit hard with her guaranteed launch debuff, while Lena can ensure your party is always safe with her powerful HP regen buffs. As receiving a brave hit that equates to 7,000 or more will result in an instant petrification. I would highly recommend you to use tanks for this fight. You can consider Leela, Beatrix, Snow, Zack, Edge, Warrior of Light, Orin, and Golov. Evasion tanks like Leela, Golov, or Edge are great here. If the boss can't hit you, they can't gain 7,000 brave damage requirements to petrify your units. You just need to watch out for the force ability though. To reduce brave damage, you can choose bring break immunity units like Alphanaut, Ursula, Kor, Iroha, or having Vaughn activate his BT aura for the max brave floor. As brave hit damage usually scales off attack stats of the boss, you can weaken the boss brave damage by inflicting powerful attack down debuffs. Units that inflict powerful attack down debuffs are pretty useful here: Kaduch, Vincent, Laguna, and Kefka. You will also want to limit their action by continuously inflict turn disable debuff like paralysis, confusion, or HP silence. You can consider Raijin or Fang for this. Fang is a great partner for Desch if you have built the latter's FR. We are already one cycle into the new FR era and there are 5 FR unit available already. If you are doing the hit and counter game, you can bring Desch and Kryl for their constant paralysis and debuffs. Or you can bring Kam'lanaut to nuke the boss death by abusing his powerful FR mechanics. As Shinryu is about building up your force gauge chargers units are great to deploy here. Characteristics of Force Charger are the unit have substantial amount of instant turn non-attacking abilities. At max force enhancement level 30, one such instant turn ability can supercharge the force gauge by a whopping 50%. You can easily amplify your force time damage by abusing the supercharging mechanics. Examples of such force gauge chargers units are Kryl, Braska, Pernello and Ignis. For other recommendations, you can consider the following. For tanks, you can bring Warrior of Light, Orin, Cater or Prompto. Be careful when you are using Warrior of Light as the boss can inflict 200% initial brave down which will result his shield values lowered. Damage dealers like Kane, Strago, Machina, and Jet are useful here as well. Machina can do boss no turns for this fight when you paired him with powerful aura support. If you are doing the hit and counter game, constant brave refunding and powerful defense boost are important. Rosa and Paladin Cecil offer powerful aura for the party. Kamari has brave damage reduction on his Mighty Guard ability and can blind the boss attacks with his Nova. Kais can ensure you launch the boss all day. His hero support also offer break immunity. This will help a lot to reduce the brave damage received as well. On the screen, you will see a timeline showing the HP thresholds triggers that you need to watch out for. Like Lufania, Shinryu fights also features aura boosts for the boss when their HP are depleted to a certain threshold. The stats boosts are triggered at the start of the fight and 49%. Like other Shinryu fights, the enemy's force gauge will charge faster as their HP depletes. As the enemy's force gauge reaches 40% and above, the boss will apply -200% initial brave downfield auras. It will gain additional brave damage boost and speed up when its force gauge reaches 80% and above. When it activates its force time, the boss will gain an additional brave damage boost to its brave hits along with doubling brave hit effect. The boss will switch stances as its HP deplete. You will know which stance it will be in depending on the auras that the boss has. When they are emitting yellow aura, they are in their physical stance. When they are emitting purple aura, in their magic stance. The boss will stay in physical stance at the following HP threshold intervals, from 100% to 80%, 59% to 40% and 19% to 0%. At other HP intervals, the boss will be in magic stance. The boss doesn't have any AoE HP attacks other than its force ability. However, the fight features a troublesome mechanic, which is that it inflicts a petrify aura on the target if one of the brave hits is 7000 and above. You can't bypass the petrify aura with debuff evasion or remove it with debuff cleansing. If all three characters are petrified, it could trigger a game over. To dispel the aura, the affected unit will just need to take a turn. It is your best interest to avoid this. Overall, this fight isn't that difficult as long as you have units that can handle the mechanics. Evasion tanks like Leela, Golov, Edge, or 8 will have a nice field day in this battle. If you have Kam'lanaut and fully gear Machina, you can easily do boss no turns thanks to his powerful FR mechanics. Now let's proceed with the boss mechanics proper. Similar to any Lufania fights, for SHINRYU fights, the boss will also gain stats boosts and brave gain reduction auras when you deplete the boss's HP to a certain threshold. However, SHINRYU bosses will also gain HP damage reduction auras as well. The threshold's trigger for this fight is at the start of the fight and 49% HP threshold. At the start of the fight, it will boost its defense stats by 200%. It will raise its brave damage and brave gain reduction auras to 80%. It will also reduce your HP damage dealt by 50%. At 49% HP threshold, it will further boost its defense stats to 300% and the HP damage dealt reduction auras to 80%. To handle the defense stats boost, you can inflict defense down calls. To handle the brave gain reductions, you can bring a brave gain up support like Agrias, Ram, or Quistis. With the recent units released, you shouldn't have any problem in handling the brave gain or damage reduction auras. For HP damage reduction auras, HP damage up calls will only partly offset against the reductions. However, you can easily overwrite them with your party force time. As we progress through the era, we will gain access to units with FR that allows you to build up your force time HP damage bonuses up to 999%. Learning on how to take full advantage of the damage window in SHINRYU fight holds the key on how to make SHINRYU fights easier. Now, I will be covering the boss key mechanics in detail. As mentioned previously, the boss has two stances, physical and magic. The stances can be easily determined by the aura that the boss is emitting. When it is emitting the yellow aura, it is in physical attack stance. When it is emitting the purple aura, it is in magic attack stance. If you doing the SHINRYU ticket challenge, you will be required to use Desch. Use his S2, Plasma Stroke, when the boss emitting the yellow aura for the anti-physical damage field. Use S1, Blitz Shear, when the boss is emitting the purple aura for the anti-magic damage field. In the physical stance, the boss will use one of the following two attacks. 1. Bite plus, a single target brave plus HP or 2. Snake Bite, a single target brave attack. Both attacks will allow the boss to overflow its brave to 200% of its max brave. Make sure that the targeted unit was protected with brave damage reduction nullification. The boss will always starts off with Bite plus once it switches to the physical stance. In the magic stance, the boss will use one of the following two attacks. 1. Curse Magic, a single target brave attack. It will increase its brave by 200% of its initial brave after the attack. 2. Flamethrower, an AoE brave attack. Similar to the physical stance, both attacks will allow the boss to overflow its brave to 200% of its max brave. Make sure that the targeted unit was protected with brave damage reduction nullification. Under any circumstances, the boss has enough brave to do a HP attack. It will use Bite. All the following attacks including the force ability will trigger the Petrify aura field when one of its brave hits reaches 7000 and above. The Petrify aura cannot be avoided with debuff evasion or cleanse with debuff cleansing. The affected unit's turn has to lapse in order for you to regain control of the unit. I have come to the last slide of the guide. By now, you should have at least one of the 5 FR. Generally, you just charge up your force gauge. Have the FR unit activate their force time with their force ability. Prepare for a big damage phase either through a unit burst phase or supercharge the gauge with Kane's follow-up. To build up the bonuses efficiently, you need bring a force gauge charger. Examples are Pernello, Kryl, Ignis or Braska. At force level 30, this units can boost the force charge with 50% with their instant turn, non-attacking ability on top of the force time conditions. If you bring Kane or using Kane BT friend as support, have him activate his BT aura and let him stay in the air firing the lancets while your force gauge charger is spamming his or her instant turns. If you have Kam'lanaut fully built with FR and BT, you can abuse his powerful FR mechanics by fulfilling 3 of the following conditions. 1. Constant launches. Selfie LD debuff, Kai's hero support or Sid Rain's LDCA on your burst unit. 2. Ice enchant. You can use Kurasame LDCA for party ice enchant or bring an ice enchanter like Celis, Onion Knight, or Kurasame himself. Snow also offers party-wide ice enchant with his BT aura. Both of Cater calls also provide ice enchant to the caller. 3. Make sure you inflict a turn disable debuff on the boss. Kam'lanaut BT is the easiest to set up. If you don't have his BT, you have to go through a setup process to fulfill this condition. When all conditions are met, the party can meet 80% HP damage bonus with a full party launch. Now let's recap on the boss key mechanics. As mentioned earlier, the boss will trigger a Petrify aura if it manages deal 7,000 or more in a brave hit. In order to avoid that, bring tanks, brave damage mitigators or evasion units so you can avoid triggering the Petrify penalty. Examples of tanks are Warrior of Light, Orin, Zack, Snow and Gladiolus. Examples of brave damage mitigator are Desch, Core, and Afma. Examples of evasion tanks are Leela, Golov, and Edge. You will probably need to use Desch if you intend to do the ticket challenge for his event. Using his S2 for anti-physical field against the boss attack stance or when the boss is emitting the yellow aura. When the boss is emitting the purple aura, have him use his S1 to activate his anti-magic field stance. You can also make use of stun lock units to minimize the boss turns. Kryl, Kam'lanaut, Aldnark, Kefka, Agrias, Fang, and Arsila are viable options. To make them hit like insect bites, you nerf their attack with powerful attack down debuffs like Vincent or X-Death. You can solo this fight with a fully gear lightning, but that will probably take an eternity to complete. Now I will make a quick overview on the FR of featured unit, Desch. In my honest opinion, Desch isn't a unit that is easy to build around with, and his FR is sadly not one of the easiest to fulfill in the game. Although he has tough to fulfill FR mechanic, he is probably the game best brave damage mitigator in the entire game to date. So, he is still worth building it even if you have just his basic kit. To fulfill Desch FR, you need to fulfill either one of the 2 conditions. 1. Have the unit use a thunder ability. Desch offers thunder enchant as long as one of his electric stances is active. You can bring Kryl, Garnet, Rajin, or Ash for other thunder enchant options. Thunder units like Beatrix, Reno, and Lightning will benefit a lot from this damage bonus. As you are probably need to give the boss a turn for his second condition, Edge and Leela are good partners with him in the event if you are unable to reapply a turn disable debuff. 2. The second condition will require an enemy to act without their turn disabled. Enemies are unable to act if they are disabled with paralysis, confusion, or HP silence. HP silence will only work if the boss next turn is going to use a HP attack. His FR applies 2-turn paralysis, so you can prolong it by using Kryl LDCA. You can deploy stun lock debuffs calls like Shantato LDCA or Fang LDCA with Laguna Sphere. Aldnark, Fang, or the HP silence pair of Kefka and Arsila along with Kam'lanaut are probably the best partners for this to abuse this HP damage bonus FR mechanic. Fang will work a lot better in the same party with him than using as a LDCA. With this, I have come to the end of my boss guide presentation. Hopefully you find it useful. If you like the video, please give a like. Please subscribe to my channel for future gaming content. Good luck for the fight in the coming days. Bye.